Okay, control categories, repeater regulations, third-party rules, the ITU regions, and an automatically controlled digital station. So amateurs in different ITU regions have different frequency privileges. We, North and South America, are in region 2, and our bands and privileges are different than regions 1 and 3. I don't know if there's 4 regions or 3 regions.
We have ITU 2, 3, 4, 6,
Oh, that many?
10, 7, 8, and 11.
Wow.
Different parts. Alaska is ITU 61 is Hawaii. ITU 1 is Alaska.
Really?
It's right on your chart.
Hmm. Well, let me see. Well, but those are dash numbers. I don't think that's the region because we're in region 2. I think these must be zones within region 2.
All regions, there's different power limits.
Yeah, things change in the other regions. But I think these are zones on that chart, although it doesn't really specify. Okay, so
Oh, serious. How many ITU regions are in the United States?
so the example is Guam is in region 3.
ITU 2 region consists of what? Hey, Google, where is ITU region 2? ITU region 2. It must be.
Did she
That's
answer?
region 2 is North and South America.
Right. That's what I said.
Okay. They only have
Yeah.
3 regions.
Okay. So Guam is in region 3, and they use different frequencies than we use in region 2.
Mhm.
So you have, if you're going to operate in one of these other regions, you have to know what those frequencies and privileges are that are different. So frequency allocations of which ITU region apply. What? The frequency allocations of which ITU region apply to radio amateurs operating in North and South America.
Charlie.
Charlie. Weird wording on that question. Okay. Third-party traffic. So the FCC has some rules about third-party traffic of who can transmit messages for unlicensed amateurs, or in essence, a third party. So you can have your next door neighbor, say, that doesn't have a license, and they would like to talk to somebody that you can make contact with. They would be a third party, You would be the control operator, but it would allow them to do the communications and send the third party traffic. It has to be with a station that's in a country that has a third party agreement with the United States. I don't currently know what countries those are. I've never done a third party. Says there's some other rules. One of the things is you cannot be a previously licensed amateur radio operator that has had their license rescinded or revoked. It's kind of like a penalty because you don't have to have a license in order to be a third party. But if you were licensed and it was revoked for some reason, you can't do it. So it's kind of like the FCC says, we're banning you from any radio transmission. What are the restrictions on messages sent to a third party in a country with which there is a third party agreement? Looks like I need to go update their previous chart. What?
Charlie.
Yeah, it's Charlie, but we didn't talk about the remarks of a personal character or messages.
You can't use it for business.
Right.
That's basically what it was.
The way I always remembered this one was the remarks of a personal character, because I never quite understood what that really means, but it's a way of remembering the answer to the question. Okay. Like I said, disqualified third parties are previously licensed people who, for whatever reason, had their license revoked and not reinstated. And I guess you have to break the rules in order to get revoked because it's not expired. It's your license has been revoked. So you operate outside the band and get caught or something like that. Which of the following would disqualify a third party from participating in sending a message via an amateur station?
Alpha.
Amanda.
You must take steps to eliminate or avoid interference. For the following conditions, when operating within 1 mile of an FCC monitoring station, which is misspelled, when using a band where the amateur service is secondary, like 30 and 60 meters, when a station is transmitting spread spectrum emissions, that's Wi-Fi or remote control vehicles, typically spread spectrum. Which of the following conditions require a licensed amateur radio operator to take specific steps to avoid harmful interference to other users or facilities?
Delta.
Yeah, all those things. An automatic controlled digital station. They're allowed anywhere above 50 megahertz and some portions of the HF bands. You can have an automatically controlled radio teletype station that's communicating with other automatic stations, like some sort of network. Can be anywhere in the 6 meter or above bands, and in some limited segments of HF, but I currently don't, off the top of my head, know what those are. to communicate with a digital station that's under automatic control and is outside the automatic control band segments, the initiating station must be under local or remote control. It cannot be automatic. That's a very confusing one. I don't know that I understand it, never done it. On what bands may automatically controlled stations transmitting radio, teletype, or data communicate with other automatically controlled digital stations? Any guesses?
Bravo.
I see,
Oh, wow.
I see two robots talking to each other automatically.
But where? It's a question. On what band?
Oh,
Bravo.
Six meter and above.
Oh, Delta.
From 6 meters, 50 megahertz. And whatever those limited HF bands are, which I don't know. I don't know if that shows up on that band chart.
it doesn't, but I know.
What is required to conduct communications with a digital station operating under automatic control outside the automatic control band segments? And this one still confuses me. I mean, I know the answer, but I don't know why.
That should be an alpha.
And it is an alpha. You have to be under local or remote control. You can't be automatic and contact a digital station under automatic control. And I don't know if that means that you're outside the I guess that means you're outside the automatic control band, but you're contacting an automatic controlled station. So you can't be automatic because you're outside the bands. You have to be local or remote. At least that's the way I understand it. When may third-party messages be transmitted via remote control?
I'm hoping it's alpha.
Yep.
I was, oh,
There was only two restrictions, remember? You can't be a disqualified amateur, and it has to be a country that has a third-party agreement. So if you meet those two, you can do it. And mesh networks. Do we have any meshes around here?
Anyone?
Any mesh networks?
Don't know. Never used any of those.
Like the AREDN, the Amateur Radio Emergency Data Network.
Nope.
These have come about recently where people take commercial Wi-Fi equipment like routers and access points and modify the firmware to be able to use them in the amateur bands and increase the power up to 10 watts. And the firmware that they put in them allows them to make contact with other modified equipment and make what's called a mesh network, where every We have multiple connections between each one of these entities. So there's always a path from point A to point B. It may vary on what stations you go through to get there, but it's basically a redundant network. And it can be, well, I guess
Having for your.
theoretically, it could be the entire country, but they're
Mhm.
usually not that big. I don't know that SARnet is really a mesh. It's just interconnected repeaters, and I think they're microwave, but I don't know that it operates as a mesh network.
It's interesting about disabling the encryption because otherwise you'd be in violation of one of the other regulations.
Right. You can't have it encrypted. It has to be open. You're thinking, Ernie?
I'm thinking about that, yeah. Because a mesh network, it doesn't have the data on it is not encrypted.
Right.
Only the communications is encrypted in a sense because it can jump around and go all different directions.
Well, yeah, the packets themselves,
Yeah,
right. But the data, the
It's
payload in the packet can't, the text can't be encrypted.
right. That's what I'm getting at. So
Yeah.
that doesn't break the rule.
Right. Just like, well, packet radio and RTTY, that's sort of encrypted, but the data that's being passed isn't encrypted.
Right.
Okay, so third-party rules apply to it. So as long as you're not dealing with a country that doesn't have a third-party agreement, and you're not trying to send messages from somebody who has been disqualified, you're okay. However, you can't communicate with a non-licensed Wi-Fi station. There's a commercial.
You can't hack into the neighbor's non-licensed.
Yeah, I can't communicate with the access point here at Hobbs Pharmacy
Legally.
legally. What is the maximum PEP output allowed for spread spectrum transmissions? And the mesh network would qualify because the Wi-Fi stuff uses spread spectrum.
That'd probably be a
10 watts. Now, the
100
normal stuff is
normal.
probably like 100 or less. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Normal
Fairly
is
low
a-
power.
Normal is 100.
Okay.
Doing it as a ham, you get to bump up to 10, I guess.
Right. So that's how many dB?
100.
10 dB.
You're right.
Yeah.
100 milliwatts is a tenth of a watt, right?
Yep.
So it's 100 times or 20 dB. In what part of the 13 centimeter band, and I guess that's 2.4 gigahertz, right?
13 centimeters.
Mm-hmm.
That's way up there.
It might be 5.
2400.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because 23 centimeters is 12, 9. Yeah. 1240, whatever. All right. So in what part of the 13 centimeter band may an amateur station communicate with non-licensed Wi-Fi stations? So it didn't really matter what frequency it was. You can't do it. Under what circumstances are messages that are sent via digital modes exempt from Part 97 third-party rules that apply to other modes of communications? They're not. You still have to abide by the third-party rules. And that is the end.